Join us for the very first IFL Live at London's Indigo at the O2, Sunday, August the 13th, with me, Cook and Cassius, and some very special guests, Eddie Hearn, Darren Barker, Johnny Fisher and more. Tickets now on sale. So in the words of Eddie Hearn,
you get up, you dress up, and you fucking show up.
Umar, I'm at IFL TV, David Alorcan, Gareth Davies, like a LA part 2.
They don't know about that. They've never seen it. That's in the IFL archives, never to be seen.
Probably the best clip I've ever filmed, but I've never put it out, and I will never put it out.
I can't hear a word. Well, I can hear Dave's booming voice, but all I heard was LA Confidential.
Yes, yeah. Confidential, that's key.
Yeah, that was a big, heavy week.
In the real world, where we operate, where our main focus is trying to be objective, trying to be pragmatic, trying to be honest and authentic, of course not.
And scrutinising a massive figure. He's a huge...
Does Tyson Fury come under the same scrutiny on TalkSport?
Well, you tell me, when people panned his performance against Otto Wallim, when people turn around and said the Chisora fight was a pup, when people are raging about the WBC lineal heavyweight champion of the world fighting an MMA fighter, when people turn around and said getting a retrospective ban wasn't really good enough for when he had the problems with Nandrolin, I think people made that very clear in their minds. I damn well did. I know he did. So you tell me, look, with, heavy is the crown, right? And Anthony Joshua is the boat, or the tide that made so many boats rise high. So it comes with an extra level of column inches. So with that, you're going to find criticism and praise in equal measure. If the criticism is unjust and unfair, then talk about agendas. It's not. The problem is that people get into people's heads and redirect and misdirect. I know my view. I know that I'm fair and I come from a position of honesty, and I'm pretty damn sure he does too. And so does Catterall, and so does Spencer, and so does everybody else.
We care about the sport. There's no unconscious bias in us anyway, because everything we do is quite deliberate. We know that we're broadcasting. We're not. Look, Simon is a brilliant headline grabber. He's a very strong-minded person with a great intellectual kind of desire for sport and an understanding of a lot of things. He's a very successful businessman and human being. You, I think, have enhanced our coverage as a result, because you are bringing eyeballs. On the Saturday night, when we're not at a fight, we're doing a magazine show. You're, as I said when Jim was on just now, you guys, we set up the news in the morning on TalkSport, and yours is the opinion former show, isn't it? 10 till 1.
When you talk about agendas, you've got to go to the genesis of that observation and understand where it comes from. When someone's holding to them account, the easiest way to redirect is to make an observation about something else and take everybody off on a different tangent. When I want to talk about Conor Benn and a drugs test that hasn't gone for strict liability, I know, let's talk about someone's hair colour. Let's talk about whose businesses were run by whose daddy. That's not relevant. So that's the kind of reason why agendas, they're thrown into you guys and the media to go bait and switch. Read behind the lines, look at the reality, and for the viewing public, make your own observations. Don't be led by the nose that those that have an agenda themselves.
I'll tell you what, there will be an agenda if those heavyweights don't all fight each other by the end of next year, because we will get on the case. If we don't see Wilder and Joshua, Fury and Usyk, Fury and Joyce and Wilder, Usyk and Wilder, then there'll be an agenda.
Simon, I watched your podcast with Frank Warren on your channel, plug your channel. I get accused of the same thing. When I get Eddie on, they're like, you push him really hard. When I get Frank on, it's a loving, like Eddie says. So do you feel like in that interview you pushed Frank as much as you could have?
I think there's a different interaction. People are different. I don't have Frank Warren sitting across from me telling me how much money I've lost or telling things about me that aren't true.
Styles make fights.
So styles make fights. So when I'm going at Frank Warren and I have a different reaction from Frank about, Frank, this is ridiculous, this is a money fight, and say it to him 20 times, right? The temperature doesn't rise in the same way that it may do with Eddie, because I haven't got someone trying to be antagonistic or disrespectful back. But the same approach, which is I want an answer, how I get that answer is a style based upon the individual I'm interacting with. So I really do genuinely believe that some relationships blossom and some do not. But people are accusing us of not holding certain things to account. when I'm going after Ben Shalom because I think Chris Eubank is a charlatan, right? That's my view, I may be wrong. Or when I'm suggesting that ultimately purse bids aren't very good, but not going after it in the same way that I would go after a drug test, it's because I think failed drug tests are damn sight more important than purse bids not being made. So let's get the nuance, let's get the subject matter, and then look at the volume and intensity of the conversation, because one is moderately incidental and one is really, really important. And the common denominator in the conversations and this ridiculous assertion that I don't like Eddie Hearn is silly. I don't like the behaviour around a Conor Benn fight. That's it. And I'm not going to change my view because I believe I'm right. And we can redirect and we can misdirect and we can make it about personalities, but it's bigger than that.
Yeah, and I'll add something about the Conor Benn thing, because he apparently will never speak to me again in an interview. I've never once called him a drugs cheat in the entire 7 or 8 months. All I've said is two tests for clomiphene were in his system, and he needs to go through the due diligence and process. And we have to say that. If we're not, and let's remember, and you took Eddie up on this week, once bitten, twice shy. This week, or at the weekend, we saw them act with alacrity to pull the fight because they knew they weren't going to get away with it twice.
Very well said.
No?
Absolutely.
You guys come to Poland for Usyk Dubois?
I'm thinking about it. I spoke to Frank the other day. I think I might do, yeah.
Might see you there. All right, Simon, appreciate your time, mate. Jim, my question was to Gareth, was just straight up, the TalkSport have an agenda against Anthony Joshua?
Do they have an agenda again? No.
Where has this come from?
I have no idea, actually.
But I mean, we're a channel. It's a sport of opinions.
Yeah.
Let me just finish.
Exactly.
It's a sport of opinions, and we're a channel of opinions. And their show that they do 10 till 1 is one. It's the opinion former show,
Yeah.
isn't it? Breakfast sets up the
is.
news. It's
It
an
is.
opinion forming.
I mean, people can be pretty thin-skinned now and again. I've seen it in football over the years. But the bottom line is this: we are right down the middle in terms of objectivity. I think that comes over every day. Everybody gets a fair crack of the whip, and no one's treated any different. That's all I can tell you.
I just want to ask you,
Jim, that because Anthony Joshua is such a huge figure, look at it.
Yeah.
This is against an 11th hour opponent,
Yeah.
and it's packed here.
Yeah.
At the Wayne. That everything he does, because he was an Olympic super
Yeah.
heavyweight gold medalist
Yeah.
in his own city,
Exactly.
he's enormous. So
He
everything he
is.
does is scrutinised.
I think that's a very good point, Gareth. Maybe he's scrutinised more than most.
Tyson Fury come under the same scrutiny on the channel?
Absolutely, 100%. Tyson was phoning to come on our show on a semi-regular basis, and then the last time around he was calling Simon and me for everything, because of what we said about him. He can't win, but we love it that he can't win.
Did you see Darren Bent's piece? Darren Bent said Anthony Joshua doesn't really come on the channel, all the interviews are pre-planned with TalkSport, etc., etc.
Darren, I saw the headline on it. Look, you guys are like the tabloids of today. You
IFL.
yeah, all of you. No. I mean, you're creating news around all of your interviews. You want people debating because it's a sport of opinions. Because no, I just couldn't hear.
You weren't a sneeze.
Yeah, I was blowing my ears out. Because it's a sport of opinion and it's combat sports and it's combative, you always get these kind of situations. I just want to keep an eye on the heavyweights weighing in a minute as well, by the
Join
way.
us for the very first IFL Live at London's Indigo at the O2, Sunday, August the 13th, with me, Kugan Cassius, and some very special guests. Eddie Hearn, Darren Barker, Johnny Fisher, and more. Tickets now on sale. So in the words of Eddie Hearn,
You get up, you dress up, and you fucking shut up.